Hello, welcome. I am here with Coach Christina. She is one of the speakers for the upcoming conference, well, the summit on August 2nd from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern. The Survivors Stand Religious Trauma Virtual Summit. I hope you all can attend. And I just wanted to highlight Coach Christina and just talk about what we can expect from the conference. All right, so welcome, my sister.
My sister, thank you for having me. I'm so honored. I'm still so overwhelmed by the love that you have poured into me to give me this
Aw,
opportunity. Thank you so much.
thank you. I was so excited that you accepted. It means a lot. It means a lot. You're my big sister, so I'm like, oh my goodness, she accepted.
Was honored. I was so honored. You have no idea. And it's very rare that you meet someone with the type of spirit that you have. You are so
Aw,
loving and so gentle and so meek and humble. And oh,
thank
I can't begin to tell you how grateful I am for this.
thank you.
Thank you.
So let's start with you just sharing a little bit about yourself. Like, what made you want to become a life coach?
Well, I'll start off when I was 4 years old. My father committed suicide, and I'm from Detroit.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was very, very rough. And I think most people think that children don't really have a handle on death and what happens, but I knew and understood that I would never see him again. I didn't know that he in fact committed suicide, but I was told of his death. And once I knew that he died, I knew that was it. Like, and I remember this feeling of extreme pain. And I continued through life for a few years in this extreme pain. And it wasn't until I got a little bit older that my mother was able to tell me, your father committed suicide. And that's the way he left this life. And when she did that, it gave me this fire, this desire in my heart to help those who were depressed. And depression was a part of my life after losing my father. So it was a big part of who I was, especially in my youth, growing up in Detroit on the east side, and dealing with the stresses of the world and the stress of the violence and what was around me. And as I got a little bit older, I noticed that my gift had a lot to do with giving love. My gift had a lot to do with helping those who were in their low spaces. And as I began to find myself, as I began to find spirit, then I found purpose, and I knew, okay, this is exactly who I am meant to be. So what I do, I'm sort of a behavioral life coach. So I use
Mm,
dialectical behavioral therapy and
hmm
metaphysics therapies to help
hmm
people to move forward in life. I take them all the way back because I use like a mental blueprinting. They call me a mental blueprint strategist. I take you
hmm
back in order to bring you forward in life. So where we were is sometimes, um, it's sometimes an indicator of who we are right now, especially if we hold on to the past, if we hold on to luggage, if we hold on to trauma, if we hold on to things that were defeating or that made us feel less than. Sometimes we can bring that into the present and we can take it into our future. And my goal is to help those to live in the now where God sits, where they can
hmm
own who they were, but also embrace where they're going.
mm. Wow. Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Um, and like I struggled with depression growing up too, and even into young adult and adulthood. Um, that's definitely, part of my experience as well. And I think that when we go through mental health struggles, it can be the thing that motivates and inspires us to want to help other people, you know, or even if you didn't experience it directly, if someone within your family dealt with it, you may be
Mhm.
drawn toward that type of work as well.
That's right. Very true. That's why you carry the same light. I see you. I
Yeah,
see you.
yeah. Um, so let me ask you, how does religious trauma show up in our relationships, like with ourselves and with others?
I could tell you for me, I experienced it early on. I was married around 25, and um, I stayed married for around 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and maybe I think 2 or 3 of those years, I really struggled with staying married. Um, I was very, very fearful that, you know, that it would be looked down upon to have a divorce. I didn't believe in divorce. I was raised to believe that, once two become one, that's it. Like there
Mm-hmm.
was no turning back. And so I felt like a failure due to that separation initially. And I remember I was just so afraid of facing my pastor, facing my family, and saying, "Hey, I failed at this." You know, it did not work out for whatever the reasons were. For us, for me, I had clear reasons to leave, but the trauma of judgment interfered with me leaving when I should have. I should have left a long time ago, you know.
Okay.
And I stayed based on what I thought others would expect from me, especially
Mm-hmm.
being a coach. I
Mm-hmm.
coach people through their relationships. I don't just do singles, I do couples as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's it's kind of like, well, how are you coaching, people to have healthy marriages if you can't even hold your healthy marriage? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So religious trauma, it can affect us in so many different ways. It can affect us in making clear, congruent decisions that are healthy, that are based upon necessity, out just because of the fear of what we may have to endure moving forward as we make
Mm-hmm.
those choices. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so for me, that's how it affected me initially.
Okay. So what was the thing that brought you to the decision to leave? Like, where did you get the courage from to?
It was my son. Actually, my son was 4 months old, and he actually, my ex-husband was driving. We were coming from the airport. We had just came back from Africa, and my son was in the back seat, and he was crying, just a little light cry. And my ex-husband was yelling at me, and then my son just screamed and hollered like I had never heard him scream so hard. And I looked back at him, and it was just like everything inside of me said, he doesn't deserve this. You know, if
Yeah.
you can't think of yourself, think of him, you know. And it was in that moment I said, yeah, I gotta get a lot stronger. I gotta make a real decision here. And so I chose to, at that time, we were living in Atlanta. I chose to move back from Atlanta to Detroit. And from there, after a while, it took me time, it took
Mhm.
me time from that point to really get myself together. But coming to God, getting on my knees, getting in God's face, and
Mhm.
finding myself, that was how I got the strength to actually file the paperwork.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Um, Many people who grow up in high control environments or purity based religious theology struggle with intimacy. They struggle with boundaries and even self worth. So, what patterns have you seen in your work?
In my work, as a coach,
Yes.
oh, absolutely. I've seen it all. I've seen it all. Uh, I've seen certainly an issue with intimacy. Actually, that's been probably the biggest one that I've seen for women.
Mm-hmm.
And women not having the freedom to express what satisfies
Mm-hmm.
them, what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
The fear of being judged for that.
Mm-hmm.
Women fearing um, loving intimacy, and
Yeah.
enjoying themselves. Um,
Yeah.
Women also having issues with climax based off of how they felt that, sex was a perverse thing, because of what
Mm-hmm.
they had been taught. So,
Yes.
oh, I don't want to enjoy this too much, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that probably at the least daily, at the least, usually maybe two to
Yeah.
three times, but at the least daily.
Yeah. I know
Absolutely.
that that's been an area where I struggle.
Hmm.
Just because you're taught to be a nice girl and you're in
Right.
church and you're supposed to be holy and all of that. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Me too. Me too. I was I was raised in the church, so for
Hmm.
me, like my husband was my first real partner. I was raped when I was 13, but he was my first chosen
Hmm.
partner. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And I took all of those things so seriously, and for me, sex was dirty initially. Like I didn't see it as something that was wonderful. Like I was kind of, it kind of made me nervous. It kind of made me uncomfortable. Um, I didn't see it as such a beautiful, you know, expression of love that it truly
Yeah.
is. I saw it more like it was dirty, and I had to grow out of that. It took me time, but once I did, I started to see, oh, I can see how some of this was systemic. Like some of this is brainwash. Sometimes they,
Hmm.
and it's unintentional, I believe. I believe mostly unintentionally they sort of, you know, pour into us or spew into us negativity about sex for fear that we're going to do that, without being married or prior to marriage. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Not
Hmm.
realizing that it can leave sort of this foul way that we see things,
Yeah.
even after the fact. So, you know how they say the bed is undefiled once you married. Well, I felt like the bed was still defiled, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, why do you think healing from religious trauma is such a critical part of cultivating a healthy relationship?
It is on so many fronts. A healthy relationship with yourself, a healthy relationship with someone else as well. I think, as it relates to healing, healing is something that's linear. Like we're going to be healing, all throughout life, right? We're going to always be working towards something. And if we're not working towards something, we're likely dead, you know.
Mhm.
And that's the truth, right? Because we came here for the purpose of expansion. And when it comes down to things of a religious nature, certain traumas that we hold on to as we're moving towards healing, and we start learning how to let go those traumas, we can literally go back to the points where we find those triggers. I just had a conversation with one of my girlfriends, and she was telling me how all throughout her life she had never had a orgasmic experience. She's 46 years old. She said never, and it was because she was so afraid that to feel good was something that God would look at as very bad, you know. And I remember telling her, okay, this is what I want you to do. Walk back to where the trauma began. And she went right back to it. She was sitting in church, she was 6 years old, and she was watching the pastor, and the pastor was talking about how how it was so important for a girl especially to keep herself, and that the man can have as much pleasure as he wants to. He wasn't even speaking from the Bible, he was just speaking from what he believed, his own thoughts. And so her whole life she thought it was okay for them, for the men that she laid down with, whether it was her husband or a boyfriend, to have their pleasure, but it was not okay for a woman to have hers. And so,
Right.
because that part of it was so negative. And
Yeah.
so the way that she healed from that was I took her through, where it came from. And then I brought her to the present, and I asked her, what did she know to be true? And when you're in the process of healing, this is for all of us. When you're in the process of healing, if you just sit back and ask yourself, what do you know to be true? So the first part of my process is to go back, but then the second is always to go back to what I know to be true, because I could tell myself a lie. Religion could have told myself a lie. My religious experience could have told myself a lie. You understand? But what do I know to be true? And then the third thing is, that I do, is to own that truth and become unshakable in that truth. And that is how healing has worked for me and worked for so many of my clients as well. It is identifying where it came from, what the lie was. You can't forget that, because where was the lie? Know where it was, know who said it, understand,
Mhm.
hey, that's not God's authority. That's somebody
Mhm.
else may be speaking, with authority, but that's not God's authority. And then understanding, obviously, what the truth is of all of that, and then staying unshakable and unwavering on what I know is truth for me.
Think for me, um even though I no longer practice Christianity, I think subconsciously it's still in my head that like it's and even though I my views have changed, I feel like on some level there's some deeply embedded ideology that's
Hmm.
telling me that it's bad, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I totally see your point.
And I got you on that too. I'm with you on that. Like, it's obviously, like, once we start getting out of the box and we start learning and we start growing,
Mhm.
the core value system will still remain, you know,
Mhm.
even though we spread our wings. I was just teaching on the Tao Te Ching, and I was teaching on the Kabbalah. Like, so
Mm.
we you know, we can explore and we can learn, but the core essence has always been good. If you look at all of the religions, you look at Islam, you look at um, you know, um, uh, the Buddhists, you look at, I mean, there's so many that you can look at, and it's peace and love everywhere. It's peace and love and goodness everywhere. Source is in everything, and that's the part I think when you remove the shackles of religion, you get to see the freedom in free thinking and getting out of mental slavery and bondage, because that's a part of the religious trauma. It's
Mhm.
slavery, it's bondage. It's telling you that who you are as you are is not enough. That is not God. That is not infinite spirit. That is not source energy. That is ideology. That is sociology. That is what we believe as a group of people together. And we decide to put that upon you in your mind just because we believe it. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it's just freeing your mind, freeing your heart, and allowing yourself to see the truth in everyone that you meet. Like, I can literally sit with a Buddhist, I can sit with a Taoist, I can sit with a Muslim, I can sit with everyone, literally everyone, and I can find truth in something that they have to give, something that they have to offer. Why is that? That's because we all have source energy within us. That's that life force energy that's within all of us. So we are all hearing, quote unquote, from God. But how are we hearing from God? How much are we getting from God? A lot of this stuff is coming from ego, and a whole lot of that captivity and that slavery that we all have been under, and all that oppression is coming from something that is not God.
Um, so you've explored other forms of spirituality, other philosophies, and you were a metaphysicist.
Yes.
Um, but you're also Christian.
Yes.
So like how, because some people say, oh, you're not supposed to like all of that over anything outside of Christianity is bad or it's wrong or so how did you come to integrate those things? Like did you ever feel like there was that those things were opposing, or how did you come to hold both, hold space for both?
I just look for God. I look for God. God is love. And, for me, although I've, like I said, I've been raised Christian, I can't say I can fully refer to myself as Christian, if that makes sense. I'm
Okay.
spiritual. I know I'm a spiritual being, and I'm having this experience,
Hmm.
and um, I don't really have a label on my belief
Okay.
system. Um, I love Christ with everything in me. The love that I have for Christ is something that could never leave me, no matter where I go, no matter what I do, no matter who I'm with. Um, Christ is just he. There's no leaving. Like, you know how he would say, you see me, you seen the Father. That's
Hmm.
how I feel about Christ. Like, my love for Christ will always be. But as I move through, what I've noticed is that God uses all. God doesn't use, just those under the umbrella of Christianity. God uses all. And I begin to see the truth that would come from the hearts of men who believed other than what I believed. And I would sit there and be like, wait a minute, but this is truth, because my heart, my soul would bear witness to the truth that they spoke. And I would sit there and say, but wait a minute, how is this so? Why is this bringing me to tears? Why am I feeling
Mm.
the spirit of the Most High over me right now as these words are coming from this person who does not believe in the same way that I do. And that's when it was like a unlocking occurred. It was like, free your mind. You're not bound to anything. You are limitless. You are boundless. God is all. God is in everything, everywhere. Sit with that, you know. And if you really like, if you remove all of the bondage, something will start to happen. You'll begin to think for yourself, and you'll start realizing, wait a minute, if this person is filled with goodness and love, and they're over here helping their fellow brother and their sister, and they're giving words of encouragement and enlightenment that I'd never heard before, that is that not my brother or my sister? That
Yeah.
changed the way I see everything. I
Mhm.
no longer see, you know, this brother over here as a, as a Muslim, or that sister over there, she's a, Christian, or that brother over there, you know what I mean, like he's a Jew.
Mhm.
Like now I just see the person, and I know that that is a vessel that is potentially going to be used by God in some kind of capacity, some way, somehow. God will use these vessels, and what I have gotten from that has changed my life. It's changed my life. It's changed the way I see myself. It's changed the way I see God. As a matter of fact, because of the other theologies, the other religions, the other brothers and sisters from distant and far lands, who are into mysticism and all kinds of stuff like that,
Mhm.
I have literally seen God in a way that is so much more loving and less judgmental and less wrathful than ever before. And me being free, for me, that's the sign that I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do. This level of freedom and love that's within me now, as compared to the one I had under the thumb or the umbrella of Christianity, is completely different. And because of that, because I know of this freedom, I know I'm right where I'm supposed to
So, thank
be.
you for sharing. And I have I have so many different questions I could ask, but I'm like, okay, it's only supposed to be 30 minutes. I think we've already went over.
Did we?
Yeah,
This was so
we might
good,
have to
though.
do
You
this
were
again.
good. You were so good. You're a great interviewer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Um, so I want to wrap up, but I I have to ask this because of the way it's flowing. So for you is when you talk about like bondage, like are you referring to like the rules and like this strict like you got to be in this box and you got to follow these things and you got to check it all off and you can't do this. Is that what you mean by bondage, or could you elaborate on that?
I am certainly talking about those restrictions, but I'm also talking about the lies, because there are
Mm,
many.
okay,
There are many lies
gotcha.
that we have been told. And those lies can keep us in the dark, keep us in bondage, and keep us in a level of captivity that will keep us from our purpose. And that's
Okay,
the part of it, yeah, that I think is
okay.
so important.
And my last question, um, so you're like I can't wait to hear you speak. I know it's gonna be powerful. So without giving too much away, can you share a theme or an idea that you'll be exploring in your session?
You are so kind to me. Thank you. One thing that I did want to sort of go over was we must be rooted and grounded. And to be rooted and grounded means obviously we have a beginning. And in that beginning, we learn whatever it is that we learn. We must also be rooted and grounded enough to be able to say it's okay to unlearn some of those things as well. The unlearning is also a part of this spiritual walk. And in essence, is going to help all of us to be able to get to that level of consciousness that we seek. This earth is thirsty, it is hungry for us to raise the vibration. And raising that vibrational frequency is what I'm here to do. That's what I'm here to do every single day in every capacity that I possibly can. And I'm going to speak that to the day I leave this earth.
Some sauce.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You guys, we're gonna have to do another interview with Coach Christina. There's so much to unpack with her.
Can't wait.
All right. Well, thank you for granting us an interview, and we're looking forward to hearing more from you at the summit. So, thank you.
I'm so excited. I'm just you have no idea, Ivory. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.